Madam Chair, we are live.
Welcome to you in the audience, most of you online joining us. Glad you're here. We'll go ahead and call our regular board meeting to order, and we will have Mr. Williams lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Technical issue there, we got it sorted out. All right, the floor will be open for a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes, thank you. Mr. Grod, do we have any public comment sheets?
No, ma'am.
The floor would be open for a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'm sure. Is there a second?
I am missing the regular board minutes on here. Is the board okay if we approve those at the next meeting since it's not listed on here and you haven't had time to read through those? That's okay. Can we do that regular board meeting from last month, approve next month, or at our next special meeting if we have one?
Just the minutes section.
Yes,
You have the special.
I have the special one. I didn't get the regular on there. I
So,
apologize.
We need to change the.
No, I just,
action item. Just we recognize that, then we'll make sure we put that one on the next one.
Good catch. Right, that motion has been made. Is there a second? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. Moving right along to our action items.
So we did have our hearing at the earlier meeting today, able to go over the details of the amended budget. The details in that, so the amended budget for the 2022, 24-25 school year. 22-year summary. And again, the proposed budget is going to, amended. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I'm starting already.
Late night.
So the amended budget has the starting amount at 1.2 with an ending amount around 150. That's kind of where we were at with the different that we discussed. So.
Okay. That was good discussion in our previous meeting. Before we open for a motion to approve the amended 24-25 budget. Sure, that's so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Proposed budget.
Again, very simple. From the previous meeting, we discussed a lot of the things about plant facility. We had a really good discussion about the projects for football field and maintenance, how some of those things have changed over the years, and also the facilities funds. We also talked about the upcoming year with salaries, benefits are all good in this proposed budget as well. So we're expecting it to be right around 150 to 169 to start, with a carryover of 716. Again, budgets are.
are you saying 800 or 100?
869.
Okay. It sounded like 100, so.
Mumbled it. 869. Yeah, that would be like, oh, we just we lost some revenue.
Like, we're going back to the drawing board.
So the clarification right before the vote.
Open for a motion to approve the proposed budget for the 25-26 school year. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the fee hearing.
Fee hearing, we have it broken up. There were 3 things in the fee hearing that we discussed. The first one was the driver's education fee to increase by $50 per student, just to help cover increasing fuel maintenance costs, be more consistent with other programs.
Board be looking for a motion to approve the proposed driver education fee increase for the 25-26 school year.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
We had good discussion on the athletic gate admission amounts. Biggest change that was proposed initially in the conversation was should we or should we not charge senior citizens? Mrs. DeGraw did go in and updated this to two different options. One option was to charge or allow the senior citizens to have an individual pass, those that are from West Jefferson or community members. One of the reasons why we wanted to have that on there is we felt like we were missing out probably some other people's senior citizens. Where when we go to games at Ryrie or Fremont, they charge our senior citizens. And so one of the discussion items from that first meeting was, could we somehow still get the money from the other senior citizens, but still give that free one to the 65 and older here. So the other thing was with the 4-year-olds, just clarifying that the pre-K to 5-year-olds or pre-K to 5th grade, include 4-year-olds on that. These would also be the family passes would be 200, couple pass 125, individual passes at 80. So I will let you guys do what you want to do with this.
I thought,
Yes.
I thought we were gonna just take off the $40.
So there's two options. We could either do it with a senior citizen pass for $40 or a senior citizen individual pass. West
For
Jefferson
free.
Senior citizens are invited to apply for a free athletic pass.
So this is, we initially proposed the $40.
Yeah.
Our discussion rendered this other option, so when the action item is made, it needs to include which option for senior citizen you would like.
So do you want to propose the athletic schedule fee change? So you can say, I make a motion to accept the proposal that does not have, I'm being really wordy right now, because I can't do it, without the $40 pass, but allow the senior citizens to apply for a free athletic pass.
So you can say with the paid senior citizen pass or the free senior citizen pass.
Or you can
Or
reject the whole table.
Do all of it,
Start
like,
with your own.
but those are, that's why both options are there, is because both options were presented.
So you guys were able to,
And we decided to go ahead with the $40.
there was no
No
decision,
decision,
because it was a,
it was a discussion.
so you can decide whatever you want to do right now.
And make the motion as you see fit. Personally, I like the free passes for our own community members. And just charge
Well, I'll-
the visiting.
I'll throw this out and see what you think. Oh, you haven't made the motion.
She's allowing you to make it.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to approve the proposed athletic admission fee change with the following changes. Take off the senior citizen individual pass for $40 and add the senior citizen individual pass for a free athletic pass
For the West Jefferson.
for the West Jefferson senior citizens. And take off the 4-year-old. Just make it like it was.
Is there a second?
And so does that mean leave the charge for the senior citizens? The other-
Take that off.
They're just,
From
And
the
then
other-
leave the other.
so for a clarification, what she's saying, she doesn't want to charge 4-year-olds and she doesn't want to charge West Jefferson senior citizens. Not that we want to, like, no,
Right,
anybody listening to this, I hope they're like saying, why aren't you doing it? I explained the reasons why it was a consideration.
So your proposal includes leaving the senior citizen for $5 for those who are not part of West Jefferson.
But I don't think anybody wants to pay for a 4-year-old to go to a ball game. It's like going to movies. How, don't you get certain kids
At
in?
three,
for
at
free?
once they're 4, you pay for them.
At movies,
That's
you
four.
do.
Yep.
I think it's
At
consistent.
buffets, it's 4.
So I don't know. Yes, for a second. So now that's clarified.
That motion's been made. Is there a second? If not, that motion will die for lack of a second.
They're bad, yeah.
The floor will be open for another motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve those athletic admission changes for the upcoming school year with the addition of a senior citizen individual pass that is free for West Jefferson residents.
And
So essentially, just to clarify,
So-
addition, That means you want the other one on there too,
so, and you wanna,
instead of.
Instead of the senior citizen individual pass.
okay, so basically the difference between this one is,
You're choosing option B.
mhm,
Okay,
so instead of doing this, you were saying free senior citizen from West Jefferson. Senior citizens from other places are 65, but we are gonna charge 40-year-olds.
that motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second,
Motion's been moved and seconded.
Mm.
Has any other discussion on that? Oh, we can vote those in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. That's really.
Controversial.
Right? School lunches.
So elementary lunches are proposed to increase by 10 cents and secondary lunches by 15 cents. That's the basis of it. Everything else was discussed. If you want more information, go back and listen to the hearing.
Before we, or a motion to approve the proposed school lunch fee changes for the 25-26 school year.
Madam Chair, someone.
Is there a second? Second. Those in favor?
Okay.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Teacher negotiation.
Great. So met with Mr. Hall and to negotiate salaries and benefits, and he took it to the teachers and they voted to approve the salary schedule that we put out to them. We do have an opportunity to switch health benefit carriers. And so they did approve us to go back to Blue Cross. With Mountain Health, the rates came in at a higher rate and we were able to go back and renegotiate with Cross and have a lot of really good options that are gonna help our teachers out. That, I don't wanna go down too much of a rabbit hole because I can, that was just something that really benefited the district a couple years ago. That was when I was still pretty new as superintendent. Mrs. DeGrasse Burley came on as an assistant to Mrs. Bingham. And we worked through that process. And it actually probably has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance premiums since that time by that move that we did. And I'm not exaggerating,
No.
hundreds of thousands.
I've run the numbers and we would have been close to $1,200 a month per employee if we had stayed with Blue Cross, looking at what their increases were over the last 5 years.
And it's tricky because when you're in a group, you're locked into that amount and you can't renegotiate unless you leave the group. And so we did roll the dice and Mountain Health was great for us for the time that we had it. Now that as the rates are coming up, we were able to get back into Blue Cross. And so I just wanted to say that was a great team effort by the district to be able to do that, and it worked out really well for us. And our teachers have been on board the entire time for both of them. They always have questions. One of the questions they had is, what about the buy down? The district will honor the buy down amounts. We will combine if they have any costs towards their buy down with Mountain Health, even though that ends August 31st. Blue Cross will start September 1st. We'll be able to combine that and we will honor that as a district. That was one of the things that came up in negotiations. And
The other benefit we got by switching was Mountain Health Co-op was covering some preventative care items at 100%. Since we left Blue Cross and now we're going back, they are covering the exact same thing. So it's also been better coverage for our employees.
So Mountain Health Co-op was actually gonna be more than Blue Cross would be.
Yes.
They were gonna-
Blue Cross
They were gonna
before.
do a 14% increase. This year, our premium was $821. So that 14% increase would have put us over $900. Blue Cross only went up by $20, so we're at $841.
But and so by keeping it right around 820, that's about right when we left Blue Cross.
Yes,
think we-
that's where it would have
That's
gone.
where it would have been. So the last 5 years, we've essentially been able to keep it right at the same level for our people there. The master agreement, we did not have any proposed changes from our side or teachers. So it was very good. Appreciate Mr. Hall and all the work that they do.
Madam Chair will entertain a motion to approve the negotiated salary schedule, health benefits, and master agreement for the 25-26 school year.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, salary schedule.
So here are all the different salary schedules we have available. So salaries, that's the action item, sorry.
I would start with certified.
So the certified schedule. The state this year did set mandatory minimum amounts at R1, which is residential one, that's a brand new teacher. P1, that stands for professional level, and the advanced professional AP1. Those areas are set in statute, meet those. Some districts, not West Jefferson, the last couple of years, West Jefferson has moved to the south, to the career ladder early. So we're not feeling a big pinch. There are some school districts that have this one closer to like 42 last year, and they have to jump all the way up. And so, we've tried to keep it the way that the law was written and intended. The different levels in between there are negotiable. One of the things that was passed during JFAX in the last session, they said a 5% increase on salaries and benefits for teachers and administration. But this is gonna come down just a little bit less than 5%. Or if you compared R2 to an R2, but our teachers get a pretty good substantial raise if they're moving a rung. And so this is a generous salary schedule. I'm glad that that's, again, they approved it. And all of this stuff is in our budget that we passed already. So everything on here is already accounted for to be paid for, just needs to be approved by the district. One of the things that's amazing is we're close to almost 80,000 for our teachers. If they have a master's degree and they're at an AP5. I can remember, I don't even wanna ask Metro what your starting salary was when
I'll
you were
tell
a
you.
teacher
$333
per
a
month.
month.
And when I started, I started right when the recession hit. So my first year, I was 32,000, and then I lost money for the next 5 years. So when I had taught for 5 years, I was making 28,000. I actually lost money.
And so at Jordan District,
Start.
yeah, at Jordan District, we didn't have a raise for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, it
It stayed frozen the whole time.
is something that, you know, a lot of times people think it's an all or nothing, you're either all in or all out. This is one good thing that has been done for the teachers. I did like adjust some things for like inflation. We had been just kind of keeping pace with inflation, but this one's at least a little bit above it, which is good, because if you're a single person teaching, you're not gonna be able to still buy a house with $50,000. Things have gone up so much.
We need to look our math on R2 and R3. I add those up, that's.
Oh, did we not? Yeah, we might have a misprint, Gary.
Plus 51752 is correct.
I can see that though, because you were on 4-0, how come that's not on? And the same. Yeah.
Okay, so the second R2 should be 51824.
Yeah, that should be 4, and that should be 4 as well.
And then,
Don't wanna show him $2.
It should be 51.
and then R3 is 53,854.
If you take the base amount plus the retained.
Let me go grab my computer so I can get it corrected.
Let's get this one corrected before we vote on it. Let's see if there's any other ones that jumps out to us. Two. This one's off as well. By $2.
That math wasn't mathing, I apologize.
We'll get that in, change, refresh it back up before we vote on it.
Okay.
With the placement, I can talk on this while Kelly's pulling that up. With our negotiations, the placement where we put on it is follows the requirements in the Idaho code. And so in Idaho, they do have like a database that allows us to like track where teachers are at with the years of experience and where they're at on the salary schedule. There was like this interim time in the mid 2000 teens that they had to start, right around 2015, 16, they had to start the career ladder. And so there was like some times where we're trying to get all of the different elements to fit. And I think you guys, we had that conversation early on in like this process. And so there were some teachers that had been teaching for quite a while that didn't get their years counted towards it. They had to start. And so some teachers didn't start off great, but there were others that came in at the right time and they were able to get good raises on that. The other thing that with the 6,359, it's in statute, but it's not in code. And so we still want to keep that in there, that $6,359. It's not in the career ladder code, but it is in statute that it will be allocated, and that is part of this. So for whatever reason that ever goes away, we would be able to reduce that from the main salary. And then also the retain and recruit is contingent upon the continuation of the supplemental. Ready to talk on the next one, Carrie, while you're.
Yeah, go ahead to classified while I finish this.
All right, classified salary schedule. Last year, we were 12.25 to start. Our goal was to have a 75-cent raise, which is more than a 5%. That was one reason why we didn't pass on a pure 5% on the teacher salary, so we would have more availability for classified staff. It still would equate out to be over $1,000 raise for a lot of these employees per year. I know that's one of the things that's difficult with when you have a certified salary schedule that comes with a degree and everything else. We just know that those with degrees have advancements more in different areas of employment. It's no different here, but we were mindful to try to give that bigger bump to the classified employees, and so our entry rate for most of our paraprofessionals would be $13. The custodians, we put a different scale for the custodians, is because they have more areas to cover, things like that. You can see where they're at with these rates. Carrie, did we want, was it gonna be 30 or 31 on that last column?
I thought we settled on 30, but you can correct me if I remember wrong.
And 30, it gets us to where we need to.
That gets a full-time 12-month employee to 62.4.
That's what we want.
Okay, that's where you wanted it.
Kind of a position as a, I mean, what position falls under administrative assistant in this
Yeah,
district?
administrative assistant would be Julie's position, Blythe's position.
Joanna Mays.
Life is not just a,
Yeah,
They're not just office
they don't
support,
call-
it's the secretaries.
Secretary. So an office support would be someone who does like the attendance, Medicaid para. We get reimbursed at a different rate for paras that bill Medicaid. Our bus drivers, if people ask, start at $18 an hour.
so that, that's a pretty good start. So that paraprofessional lunchroom, where are your other paraprofessionals?
The
So-
med paras.
So you have paraprofessionals, this would be a lot of your instructional paras. And then there's the Medicaid para. One of the reasons why that's higher is you're working with students with special needs. And at times that requires some specialization, potentially some different medical needs, maybe some different things with bathrooming and things like that to help students with those. So that does, we do want to pay those a little bit more because that is it's a tough job.
Yes.
Do that. Then I'll move to the admin and exempt. So these will be the proposals that are in the budget. Our, let's say pre-K is the 8 principal. I am gonna make a change next year where Mrs. Erickson will oversee
I'll
the
fix
entire
that.
building. Mrs. Scott will have 9 through 12. They still will share responsibilities as kids are in their different buildings. But we would have our elementary to junior high principal at 89, the high school principal 94, superintendent at 107. Maintenance would be 65, business manager would be 68. Those are all under the 5% increase that everybody else had. If we get a full 5% increase, they would be higher than that. And so these increases were similar to the increases that we have with the teacher salaries. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is as teachers have the ability to earn more, there still needs to be a buffer between the next level of administration. And I was visiting with a gentleman who I met at a lot of different leadership academies and different things as a principal. We ran into each other at Sam's Club, and he has, I asked him, hey, how's your summer going? He actually looked like he was having fun. I'm coming in all like tired. And he said, I am not a principal anymore. He said, I am back in the classroom. He said, with the teacher's salary schedule and the stress that administration takes on all the time, he said it wasn't worth it for me. And so he's like, I get to enjoy my whole summer and not have to worry about staffing or any issue. So when I look at these, I know all of these things have been looked at with just the different groups. We are proposing those to be at that level, just to keep that maintenance there. So I would hate to have a teacher or a principal not want to be in that position because it's better for them to go back with less stress. So, Mr. Grady, any luck on that?
Just a second, it's finishing publishing and then you can refresh.
All right.
There's a lot of things attached to there, so it takes a little bit of time.
You do have a lot attached.
Okay, try and refresh your main
All right,
screen.
let's try this.
No, you have to go to your main screen.
Screen.
Yeah. That attachment won't change until you click on the new one.
Okay. And certified,
certified, and you can click on the admin and exempt, and that one's correct now too.
okay. All right, so we can see that that one got changed to Form 4. This is looking better. Okay, so any other thing that you saw on?
I didn't add them all up, I just.
I was like, how'd your math mind rolling on this one?
Well, this 2 and 3 and getting the same bump, but. Just one.
Okay. And then you said the admin one has.
I
the-
fixed the designations.
And I know it's always awkward when like you're showing salaries and especially where my salary's on there. You can go onto Idaho Ed News, you can.
You can
click-
search
you can
any
search
educator.
School employee anywhere, and if you really wanna look where I'm at compared to that, out of 4 pages, I'm on the 4th page in Idaho, so I'm nowhere close to other superintendents, but it is I do wanna just say thank you to our school board for it, allowing me to work here and work with me on that. I know it's like a tough thing when you have to bring that up, but it is, we're in a public institution and it's a rewarding job, it's a difficult job, but there's a lot of school districts that are looking for superintendents, so if anybody is aspiring to become a superintendent, I tell them go for it. I'd help mentor them, teach them how to do it, because we need more superintendents in the district,
You're in the
or not in
state.
the district, in the state, not here.
We have one here.
Right,
That's not me residing.
we appreciate when we have here, we're glad you're here. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the proposed 25-26 salary schedule.
Madam Chair, I support.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks for your patience on that. Good catch.
On to contracts.
Right. Let's look at the certified contracts. Supplemental contracts. This would be what what we're assuming will be our contracts. Again, we have a couple of these positions that are new, like, that we haven't finished hiring for, that might change a little bit. But this will gives the board and just anybody else to know that this is exactly what, we do have that wrong on. the
Yours is
super-
wrong.
Yeah,
Oh, no, you're on there twice, that's why.
let's change that, cause I don't wanna be. That puts me,
That put you on page 1.
I might, no, I don't know, I think I might be still down a couple though. I don't think I'm higher than the big districts on that one. You wanna make that change?
Yes,
real
sir.
quick?
Okay, where is that?
And that, so those last two just didn't get erased.
Yes,
That's what happened is when you wouldn't put those on. The last two didn't get erased. So let's look at, others are the supplemental contracts with the coaches.
coaches, academics,
Coaches academic.
administrative.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot.
So that's why let's talk about trying to make sure we had enough funding for it.
Yeah.
It does take a lot. That's the part. I made this comment, I don't know if it was in the first meeting, but there's, with the funding that comes in, I know sometimes people say, you guys only care about athletics, you only care about the extracurriculars. I think it's very fair to say that extracurriculars and athletics are popular, and that's what the community likes to see. But it is not even close to accurate saying, like, what is the most valuable part in our district? And the most valuable part is our academics, and that's why we invest in teachers and we invest in people to come and teach kids academics. And so we spend millions of dollars on salaries for teachers, instructional aides, and the different people to help make that happen so kids can come learn. And then we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on athletics. It's a lot of money, but it's worth it for the youth of our community, and really appreciate all these different people that are willing to even come and coach. And there are a lot of our coaches that donate back to their programs a lot of times, or even use the stipends to buy things for their coaching staffs. So there's so many different things that happen that
Our athletic stipends are around $130,000.
so by the time we get finished with just athletics.
That's just athletics is
About
130,000.
Is that ready to be updated or is still loading?
Let's see. It's ready. I'm sorry. Don't go there.
Go here to do it.
Yes, please.
We are on
Contracts certified.
All right, good. I'm not getting paid twice.
Neither is a first grade teacher.
Perfect. Oh. Action item.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the proposed 25-26 certified extra day, extra duty supplemental contract. Chair, is there a second? Those in favor? Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Last item.
Right. Okay, I've got one that came in recently as of like this morning. So that's gonna be our first one. So the junior high would like to adopt an amplified ELA curriculum. Now, this is the same one that we approved last year for sixth grade. Where we have a new teacher now teaching in seventh and eighth grade. We've hired Mrs. Hebden to teach in there. Mrs. Hebden has been helping in the sixth grade and is familiar with this type of curriculum, and also has been working with Mrs. Fisher on that. So Mrs. Erickson came to me and said, is there any way we can streamline these curriculums next year? The feedback that I've had from the curriculum, and I believe we've even had a couple of presentations to the board about the positive response to the new curriculum. I really would favor us doing this. We did put into the budget to allow us to be able to reach a 5-year quote, if that's what the board decides to do. But so this would allow us to be able to use the same information from the review committee from last year, because it's not a different curriculum, it's just an extension of it. And it would be for the seventh and eighth grades. They gave us 2 different quotes, a 1-year quote for $12,699 and a 5-year quote for $20,000. I think it's a no-brainer in my opinion on that. And the funding source would come from the junior high textbooks out of general budget.
I have budgeted in that line item 25,000.
You don't have anything else?
No other curriculums, but that gives me a buffer.
One of the other things is that this quote includes PD. I don't know if we really need it, and that's one thing, Mrs. Erickson. So if we put in here not to exceed that amount, so if the board wanted to vote for a 5-year quote, go for the 5-year not to exceed that amount, that would still approve it. I think it's gonna come in less if we don't do PD, probably by another $5,000.
The other thing that switching will do is it'll allow Mrs. Hebden and Mrs. Fisher to collaborate together because they have the same curriculums, and that will lend really well to that.
Or professional learning committee, community.
Have any questions or discussion? And Chair will entertain a motion to approve an Amplify ELA curriculum for the seventh and eighth grade for the 5-year quote not to exceed $20,701.70.
Chair, so
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yep, one more. So, transportation department. May have seen or heard that we had a bus that was smoking a lot. We got a couple of phone calls, one from my dad. Saying, oh, that's not good. I said, we know. We're getting it worked on. What, we have several buses that are getting a little bit older, that have need for more repair. Bus 14 is gonna cost us about $13,000 to fix. I feel like we should do that. There it is, with the amount, so it's gonna be some things with the exhaust manifold and turbo and different things like that. But new buses cost almost 150,000. And so we needed to, it's a balance between, like, maybe if the buses only cost 60,000 brand new, we'd look at this and say, I don't know if we want to do that. But where buses are 150,000 each, it's something I feel like we need to take care of.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the bus repairs for bus 14.
Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any? That motion passes.
Okay, so last month or last meeting, we talked about our high school graduation. One of the things that came up in our discussion was having our graduation requirements with world history or without world history. And so this is the one that was brought up last month, that we would have no world history and have the exact same requirements as the state of Idaho.
I wasn't here.
You missed out.
I know, I would have argued against that.
Well, you don't have to argue because we just have a discussion.
Well, it turned into an argument.
I don't know, but whatever. So, keeping world history would just look like this, and that the electives change, but we do require world history. After we had the discussion, Mrs. Scott and I, we visited with Mr. Gore again and Mr. Gemar, and I can see both sides. Like, from the district standpoint of trying to just keep things streamlined, that would have been the discussion part of saying, hey, from this perspective, let's get rid of it. We don't have to worry about it. Not every school does it, but a lot of schools do still. That's one thing that we did find out, that there are several regional schools that still require world history. And so the argument about it's easier for us to recruit kids for that doesn't hold as much weight as it could if every school around us did it. I'm okay either way. I'm neutral at this point.
Well, I really hate to think that we're graduating kids out of our high school that don't know the world, anything about the world, that what little they learned in elementary needs that extra, I think. I think they're terribly uneducated if they leave without having that.
I think it's good point, so.
I'd like to see it stay.
You would too?
So look at that, the argument's already started from the end.
Well, that was too easy.
Madam Chair,
No,
you have a,
yes, Scott.
Well, and, you know, I talked to Shane about this, so it's not a surprise, like, we had been talking about it because of the state requirements changing, and my initial conversation with him was even speech was going to go. And so I was advocating for both. And when it was gonna go to, I said, well, can we at least keep the dual credits for both? And then there was never a follow-up after it came out, and Mr. Gore is pretty passionate about keeping it, and he said he'd do all he could to try to make it work. And we just, you know, what I told Shane, so it's not, like I say, it's not a surprise to him, is like we came up with a number of reasons, and one of the biggest is our freshmen entering into high school. And you know, you hear tons about Mr. Hall and what those kids get in history there. I feel it's the same thing, and it sets an academic standard when they go into his classes because I feel like he really hits on critical thinking and discourse and how you have discussions that our freshmen wouldn't get until they're juniors if they skip that class. So for me, there's more than just, and obviously global awareness is so important in this day and age, and understanding maybe why we have the history we have by understanding the world around us. And I just feel like he's also one of our rigorous and highly effective teachers who really gives our freshmen and sophomores, because we've made it, you can take it your freshman or sophomore year, just that upper level push to start thinking a little bit more academically. And so that was kind of my argument of like, let's keep it. And I hadn't thought of that, and I felt bad because I just thought it was kind of a done deal. But Mr. Gore came to me and we had a good conversation about that. And one thing that I've seen the rise in, I'll be curious as the semester kind of closes that gap, though, is our seniors, like when we say they need more electives, this is what we're seeing a lot of our seniors doing though, is study halls, off campuses, work releases, or lighter academic loads their senior year. And I would love to see that it just stays that consistent academic load throughout. And I'm not saying those are bad things. But I'm saying like we had kids taking 4 of these at a time by their senior year. Now, granted, they were kids who had more credits, but we were still requiring that same level. Where it can hurt a little bit is with our seminary kids, because it does reduce the amount of electives they can take. But there are still ways to do it. And I've watched that with my own kid to keep her in orchestra. We had to make some choices. But this one, I just hope won't be a choice, because Shane did say we could keep it, just keep the dual credit, but it would be a choice. And you probably wouldn't get as many kids taking it that could really benefit. And I think all kids can benefit from what I've seen in those classes as I've observed. And that's a neat thing how he teaches. And I think it benefits our students in it too. So, anyway.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott.
I want to hear somebody that doesn't want it. Come on. No, I thank you, Chrissy, for putting that together. And, you know, that's why we have the different readings. That's why we have the different discussions on the policies. And so if this is something that the board, it sounds like Andrea is kind of leaning that way, we could take this one that we currently have up with those requirements and just turn this into a first reading and then take that to the next one and go that route. That would be okay. Because would that be the only thing that you would want to change from that policy, would just be to add world history instead of take it out? That's basically the only thing on this. Okay. All right, we'll turn this one into the first reading and
Yep.
And move it to a second reading for next time.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay. The second part, not a policy, but a procedure that we wanted to just have the board be able to have eyes on. Mrs. Scott's been working on just making sure that we have procedures in place for students who are homeschooled for part-time during their high school year and then wanting to come back in. So most kids, when we say homeschool, they're taking a curriculum, an online curriculum through some other either school district or something where they can come in with documentation to say these are the things we require. So the question that we have at hand is, what if you have a student who was homeschooled for 2 or 3 years of their high school and then want to come back maybe their junior, senior year, and then want to graduate? We have the requirement as a district to be able to ensure that whatever they were learning at home is comparable to what they could have had here. And Christy, maybe can you talk a little bit about your research on who you've called and what you've looked into and what brought you to this point, and I'll let you just kind of walk through this if you don't mind.
So we're actually in a really great spot, but I anticipate it increasing because we have some really good examples of students who were homeschooled, not with an online documented, like accredited curriculum. Some of it was created by parents, some of it was created in groups or homeschools that they've gone to. But we're very lucky because they've done it well. And so it was really nice to create this. But when they came in, for the state of Idaho, I've actually talked to them because they do allow homeschool kids. Like they can come to high school, they can homeschool, and they still go to college. I don't know what that looks like or how they get in, but they can. And the state of Idaho does allow that. So I actually called the lady at the state over this and I said, what are districts doing? Because we have one of our two that are really good examples of this asked if they could graduate. And I went because they will only have done 2 years of high school. But their freshman year, we had to look because they participated in sports at are they matching the IHSAA standard of, because they still with IHSAA have to be on track to graduate, even though they're homeschooling.
Or the equivalence of.
Yes, or the equivalent of it. And so
Yeah.
they actually had portfolio, they had work, and I got my core teachers to look at their portfolio. So clear back at their freshman years, we did that. And so we were kind of seeing that progress. They both, so the two that I'm kind of in my brain, but I do see it could be continuing to happen. So I just said, I didn't know because then the parents, so next year, one of them will be a senior and they said they want to graduate from West Jefferson High School. Because they've only been here 2 years. And so I said, what does that look like? So this is what I've come up with. And this lady at the state says that as districts, individual districts, we can decide what that looks like. Right now, it's a procedure. You might want to think about it being a policy. I don't know what the process for that is, but this is what I came up with so that I could help facilitate and answer the question for the parent that's asking for their student. And my guess is that there will be another one, but once we get kind of the go of what this looks like, then I can talk to those people. So when they came in, they never really told us like they wanted to graduate. They just
Christy, can I
wanted the kids
interject
to
for a
come back
second?
to school.
So, procedure or policy, I just want to speak on that for a second. How it works right now is like with our kids that are graduating, is Mr. Guimar and Mrs. Scott, they look at all of the academic requirements and then they present those kids to the board for approval. And so that's why my mind is thinking procedure in this is, and when we called the state, they didn't say you had to have a policy, you said to have things in place to verify that they're there. And so let's talk about these proposals.
Yeah, so the biggest thing, the first one looks very familiar. It's the state standards. We also still require
Am I
kids.
in the right spot for the,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's just the first point, that parents have to understand, like, we have to make sure kids have completed these standards. Oh yeah, and I do have a paper copy if you want. And sorry, I listed it with us
Last
counting
year's.
world history in last year, so, yeah, but we did add in the digital literacy because we knew that's been approved by the state.
so this would have to adjust to whatever policy we approve.
Yes, for grad requirements. So this was just created on what I knew was new. And according to Mr. Guimar, our district, and I think it's still a good thing, they do have to take a college entrance exam of some sort. The state offers the SAT free for everybody. We even can include ISATs in that. Credit evaluation and transfer. This is, I think, number 2 and number 4 are the ones I would really look at closely. If you want to make comments on it, if you're not sure what it looks like. So 2 is, since the student was homeschooled, the public high school will need to assess and validate prior coursework. Because again, as Shane said, we have to verify to you that they've met state standards. So what we have seen from the 2 that we've had is portfolios, really extensive portfolios. And we used them to evaluate, could they participate in sports? So we did it before this even became a question. So it was really nice to see the work that these students were doing. I feel like one of them patterned it after their students who were actually going to public school. So their one they were homeschooling, they did a lot of the same classes and used, like there was even a notebook that was in one of the classes that I was like, oh, it looked very similar. So they're really good examples of doing homeschool really well, that we've been able to see. And here's some things that we could say we want to see, and what we looked at mostly was work. These parents will create report cards, and that's where the struggle comes in, is how do we know like what the report card looks like? So if you look, credit recognition, like we can look at those report cards and the portfolio and just assess it, but I want to kind of skip to 4 so you can see how that connects. So with GPA, only coursework completed within the accredited high school. This is one thing the state lady talked to me a lot about, was number 4. And I tried to look at other policies. I tried to write down what she said were some of the problems and issues that have arisen because of it. Where it just says that we will only create a transcript. We can put on their transcript what they did in homeschool and indicate that. And it will satisfy still the state grad requirements, but it won't be a transcript that is figured into a GPA calculation, just what they do at our public high school. Class rank, so this is more for the academic awarding. Class rank would be determined on GPA from accredited coursework. So that's like, we're gonna be going through an accreditation next year. And what that's saying is the state has said that this school is making sure that we fulfill the grad requirements, the high school level. Homeschools don't have that same accreditation. So it's kind of, and I said, well, then how do you determine it? They said the districts get to decide. So I think you do have a voice or a say in it if you want to make some changes. Valedictorian, salutatorian eligibility, she said this is a big one and it's come up a lot. And speaking with my counselor, who I work closely with when we look at GPAs for this is a big thing for some kids. And I agree, I think it should be. He felt like you needed to have attended at least all 4 years to be a valedictorian. I kind of compromised and said at least 3. 2, and you guys have seen how I've done it. I try to recognize kids who have above a 4.0. So anybody can be a valedictorian. The class typically decides who speaks. So we said that if they had 3 years, they would not be in contention to speak because they weren't a part of that class for all 4 years. So it kind of combined his view of wanting all 4 years and being a little more lenient and still saying this kid did really push and get good grades for the 3 years we had them. And they could still be awarded just the valedictorian.
Can we pause and just see if there's anybody that has any comments on number 4?
Oh, sure.
I guess I'm just glad we're having this conversation because if you have homeschool kids that come in the 11th hour and go, well, I want that West Jefferson diploma. And if you haven't been really towing the line doing homeschool, and now we hand you one of our diplomas with our name on it, that looks.
But that's why I think it's really great that we have 2 really strong examples of good homeschooling. Again, I'm not, when someone's like, well, what does that mean? I'm not critiquing homeschool. I'm not like, these parents have wanted their kids to learn. They've done a really, really good job. And we've evaluated saying you're okay to play sports, which is telling the state they're on track to graduate if they were in high school. So that happened before this even came about, and then the parents did ask if they could graduate from here. The state says they can, but you get to decide, as a district, we get to decide what that looks like. And after going through this, like, here's something that's interesting, because I tried to look at a wide variety of things. I said, okay, well, how are they doing here now that they've been in? They're doing great. So to me, that's an answer to the fact that their homeschooling was really well done. One of them was a great student. I assume homeschooling was not because of that. The other one, kind of similar in a way. And again, I really feel the parents value education and they did it really well.
So we don't ever give them any testing.
Well, so with this, to be able to graduate, they would have to have, because our district requires kids to take it, which is why a college entrance exam.
That's it.
And then we encourage ISATs, but they don't have to take.
They have to take the civics test as well.
Yep,
You
so
know-
civics test, still do a senior project,
Yeah.
because that's a state requirement, like all of those things have to be done. So that's still listed as additional requirements.
So if they're homeschooling, how can they, homeschooling, we're saying they have to have 3 years with us, they can only homeschool.
To be valedictorian.
Or just to be valedictorian.
Yes, it's not to be able to graduate. You
Mm.
can decide that if you wanna say that. But the state does say a kid can do this, like they're in full support. They don't make really clear definitions. They allow you to define what that looks like. That's why I think the portfolio evaluation and then how they do when they come here shows where they're at with regards to what they've been learning
So when
and that
they,
they're doing okay.
when they wanna homeschool, they have to come in and check in with you and tell you that they're homeschooling. I mean, don't we
Necessarily.
keep track of these
No.
kids? I mean, isn't there a
No.
truancy thing?
Not in the state of Idaho.
No.
How we know about a lot of them is they play sports. And there are rules that guide that almost more strict than there are about
I thought
academics.
kids had to go to school.
No,
They,
Well, they can say they're being homeschooled, but
if they're homeschooled and live within the boundaries of West Jefferson, they have through the IHSAA rules and also the state of Idaho, they can still come and play here.
but they still have to be on track to graduate.
Yeah.
That's what's nice
But
is,
they have to show up and say, these are the things we've been working on. And so,
No accountability though.
well,
not,
yes,
in the
if they
state of-
wanna do these things.
Well-
No, if they don't.
yeah,
So if they wanna play sports or graduate, then
then there is
yes.
accountability.
And this one came kind of out of the sport one, cause it's pretty intense. And we haven't really had that issue yet, so I think that's probably why it hasn't been addressed. But I'm really glad we have really strong examples of doing it well.
So with the valedictorian section, is this only for homeschool kids, or what if I'm a 4.0 student and not my choice, my parents moved me to West Jefferson?
It says you have to have been, I think our handbook already addresses a transfer student. And off the top of my head, I think you have to attend at least a full year. And if you wanna make it more, you can, but it was a full year, and we actually ran into that, not this year, but last year.
I would just add on this, maybe you can see in there. Just in case somebody ever were to look at this and they confuse it with, well, this is saying valedictorian's eligibility. I know it's for this whole thing's for homeschool kids. Sometimes it just to be clear to say, homeschool students must have
Sure.
attended.
I can add that in.
And maybe even say other transfer students, but if I was I get that.
Transfer students was addressed, it's addressed in our handbook,
Good.
it already says that, so we thought about putting a little blurb in the handbook with a link to this for parents.
Perfect,
Instead of putting in this whole document, but we wanted your eyes and input.
because I can foresee that there's gonna be confusion on what really constitutes a homeschool student and a student who goes to an online accredited school at home. There's a difference, so.
But they're still enrolled in our school, like, we actually have one of those too. They are enrolled in our school, but they're doing it all online.
but if they were
And
doing
we
it
do
through
have,
a different district their first 3 years and then came to us their senior year.
well,
Yeah.
they're still accredited though.
I think that's the difference, is if it's accredited versus,
Non-accredited. And maybe that's,
They would still have to meet, so like if they were in Utah and did it. They
Yeah.
would still have to meet Idaho state standards to graduate, which is covered right there they have to meet those basic standards. So if they hadn't done a speech class, cause Iowa doesn't offer speech, they would still have to meet it here through either online or through our high school.
Yeah.
But that, to me, I feel like that's more a transfer student. This isn't,
yeah,
it's not, cause they're doing an online accredited thing.
and I think it's important just to mention that because it will be confused, like parents that are doing the pure homeschool. And that's the other thing.
So
is
maybe we need some definitions in it.
Possibly. Possibly, because that's another thing, if you know individuals who are homeschooling their kids, but they don't live in our boundaries, they're technically not eligible to come play sports at West Jefferson. Because it's homeschooled. Now, if I was taking.
If they enroll with
If I
us.
was enrolled and I was taking IDLA classes, which still allow you to have some flexibility in the home, but you're taking IDLA through West Jefferson, then you can come and play. Or if you're enrolled in Oneida School District's accredited one,
Don't live here.
and live outside, then you are still eligible because you're taking courses from an accredited and you enter in as a freshman. It's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's a lot of
So
different
we're looking at just
nuances.
pure homeschooling where they're not connected to an accredited, and maybe I can just add that definition.
I think
at the
that's good.
top.
So, yeah, so if you wanna play sports, but also do things at home, the best is, like, really the best way for us to support the kids and have eyes on them is to do the IDLA online stuff, which gives you flexibility, but then we actually have a chance to really help out with the academics if they start falling behind. We're contacting parents, we have people reaching out to them, we have invite them to come in for tutoring, and so we have a lot of good things. I just had to say that. Talk about
Do
the
you have
trends.
any input or insight
So-
that you want?
So
adding
the
or
colleges
questions or-
have, with a homeschooler, do they submit grades, a transcript?
A parent can submit a report card. The college would have to decide.
Kind of like what we're doing.
So my guess is they make them take some kind of college entrance test.
Yeah.
So the ACT, SAT. And we're gonna require that as well. So.
You wanna talk about 5, 6, 7 and
So, those quickly, like transcript documentation. We would list what they did in public school and that's gonna show up on their transcript. We would make an indication of what was homeschool on their transcript as well. And put the grades that they were given by the parent, but it won't be figured into the GPA. I talked with Mr. Guimar about that. We also will put the results of their standardized tests on their transcript. 6 is just additional considerations. If you have someone who's really, really moving fast and they have met all the requirements and they want to early graduate, I don't know that that will come up, but I know in the Boise area, there are a lot of kids who don't go to school because I didn't know this, like their NCAA, their schools have to be NCAA certified because they've got kids that go out on golf tours and so they do a lot of different things. So we just put that in as kind of a clause because she mentioned that. And also flexible scheduling, like if they want to enroll and do IDLA and still do it at home, we would still look at that, but if they've been homeschooled to that point. So again, we added that in. And then 7 is just, this is what we would tell parents, and I feel bad because kind of doing it in reverse order, when I didn't ask these questions. When the one that's asking, they asked it kind of Marchish for me and it was pretty busy, and so I started calling and asking questions of what it would look like, and I just told them it would have to run through the board first, and this is when we're doing it. Because they will be a senior and we just want to make sure that they've met the requirements so that we can get them in classes that they need to be in. The other one, we haven't done what it says like action steps for parents. When they came to enroll, we set them up with a schedule, but we didn't say, hey, do you want to graduate? And what does that look like? And we should have asked that question because the state of Idaho does allow for that. So.
did we skip one? I think you addressed it already.
Yep, I think we hit on all 7.
That was my only thought with this group, is maybe have some definitions at the beginning on what really constitutes as a homeschool.
And if you want some time, like, I don't know if it needs to be approved. I know they want to kind of meet and start looking at their schedule. They're concerned, but I just told them, I'm like, this needs to be looked at and considered, and it's not just an overnight thing.
Unless the board wants to come and turn this into the policy part, which I think would take longer. My recommendation is this is a perfect procedure for us to have this as long as it's written out. The board has eyes on it and can give feedback, and it kind of carries the same weight as the handbook. And then that way you have procedures in place that you can present to the board.
And if you feel like it's not going well, maybe that's a time to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And look at, but I'm really glad we had good examples because it helped us kind of build like what we want to see. And I really feel like even how they came in at an upper level, like one came in as a junior and they did fine. And the other one came in as a sophomore and they did fine, like their grades were good. And I know it's because we'd already seen work and their parents had done a really good job, but it wasn't through anything that was accredited.
Is it 2 different parents or was this?
Yeah,
They're 2 different families.
How about behaviorally? How is they
Great,
done?
great. One of them it's been very good for. The other one, I think that they were already okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's the junior one that I think it was kind of an experiment of what's this gonna look like, and it ended up being really great, and so I think that's why it came up. when it did, but I'm kind of glad because we did all the things to enroll them and try to place them
And now,
where they needed to
now
be.
we'll be better.
But then the next step for them was like, well, can they graduate now? And I was like, oh, so I had to do a lot of looking and asking, and the state of Idaho does allow it, but it's based on how we want to create it as a district.
Do you feel good about this? Like,
I do. If they hadn't done well, I might have questioned it a little bit more. And I do know the one that wants to graduate did take the ACT test.
So if they don't do well, um, how do we treat that?
I don't know.
I think that would be the difficult part because you'd have to look at the coursework and make a determination up front.
Yeah. So when they come, that portfolio, and that's what's nice
Yeah.
is we did evaluate both of those portfolios before this became a question, so they could do sports. My 4 core teachers, so I had Mrs. Bell, Mr. Gore, Mr. Packer, and I think
Which English?
it would be Mr. Taylor, because Karina was, so Mr. Taylor, actually it might have been Karina, I can't remember. They looked so that they would be eligible, and the IHSAA had a really strict, like, if they're homeschooled, then you have to look at what are they doing and are they on track, because we have to say they're on track to graduate. And so I told them, and one thing that was cool is one was coming from 8th grade to be a freshman, and we just said, you might want to amp up the math a little bit, but I can see that you understand it. And a lot of these parents have had kids go through this school, so they were doing similar things to the school, like they kind of patterned it that way. And they've done, like I said, they did well in all the classes that they took. One, I don't know if I can say this, I'm not naming names, but one was a little bit more of a struggling student. The other one was a good student, and they're both doing well in their realms. And so it's been kind of cool, but they both were doing athletics, so we evaluated them at the same time. And we saw these really great portfolios and evidence of work. And the parents created a report card. They had their own testing. Like some of it, they had gone to different people and they had them take testing. They had results from that. Like they were impressive.
I wonder if that will be the exception.
Well, and that's why I like that and I like that we have that standard. So when you look at the portfolio evaluation, let's pretend a kid comes in that isn't, if they don't have those things, then it says we get to decide if not enough evidence, says it may require the student to demonstrate proficiency through assessments or additional documentation. And maybe we even need to add or taking the actual class. And I didn't add that.
So do we have any provision for having a student stay to complete if they're graduation age and they stay another year, they need to pick up some things? They're homeschooling.
You could be a 5th year senior. I know that you can't be eligible. You only have 4 years of eligibility for sports. I know we've had some kids come back. It's been a long time ago though. Most kids do not want to come back and they go do a GED. This is not based on a homeschool student. This is based on students that I've seen because they take a lot of ribbing for that. But it also depends on when a parent enters them and what age level they are, because
And also what they declare that they are,
yes,
like
yes.
first grade level. Like there's a lot of.
And based on
gray areas
coursework, so the cool thing is now that we have this in place, which it didn't cross our minds until parent asked, so I'm grateful they did, is we would say, well, we feel like you're probably at a freshman level, even if they thought they were a junior. And so we actually did do that because there was no record from some previous ones, but it wasn't about graduation. And unfortunately, the 2 that we said, this is where you're at and this is what you're gonna have to get, aren't going to school anymore, but one of them still is because they started in 9th grade. So it can be hard because there wasn't any documentation of any kind of work, nothing from the online schools, nothing. And so they kind of weeded themselves out, but they did come for a little while. I think one of them could have made it, but they made the choice not to come back. So I guess actually now that you've said that, we did have a case. And we weren't thinking about graduation, we were just thinking like, okay, this is where you fall. And they didn't like it because one of them was a little bit older and I get it, like.
This looks really good. Chrissy, thank you for all the hard work you've been putting this together and
Well,
a good discussion.
I'm sure there's holes and I'm sure there's problems, but I think then that's when, you know, like with this, we would come and say, like we would do with any student where we come and ask you of like what we feel like they did or didn't, or and then it falls on you to make that decision.
We're gonna need it, sure. Thank you.
And, okay, go.
And
I'm headed to Boise for some training, so my last one.
I don't know how I'll do on this next one.
Oh.
Superintendent report.
Yes.
So these are just the PowerPoints that were put on in Mrs. Bell's classroom. I kind of wanted to go round robin style on this one and just see if there was something that the board that attended that, if you wanted to say anything about it, I give you a chance to respond or even.
Thought it was pretty clever of them.
So which one would you like to bring up?
Where are they listed?
Oh, there, you can see them up there on that one there, so. Boys bathroom, online attendance, school schedule, seat time versus demonstration of mastery, senior project.
Were you guys in there with the boys' bathroom one? I heard there was a pretty cool outcome though, where we talked to Andy and he said, well, someone's coming to actually look. And so the kids that did the presentation went in with the contractors and him to like share some of their ideas.
So,
Yeah.
so this group just talked about ventilation systems, installed new sinks. They surveyed some
The
boys.
dividers were the biggest thing though.
Was that contractor able to? open the plan?
So we're in progress of that.
We're in the process of that. We've had an architect come out and look at it, so that's where we're at right now. So this one,
That one's settled.
it is, I know the cost. I wish it would only be that. Those, but good things on that one. Another one? Any questions on it?
Well, the school schedule was preposterous, that's never gonna fly.
The online
Say 9
attendance
to
one,
3.
9 to 3,
Well, let's look at that.
the shortened day one.
shortened day and go into June to 15.
So, and again, the purpose of this, it was a math class, and so they were just looking at statistics and looking at different things,
Yeah.
and so I think in a perfect world where you didn't have like set rules from the state and different things, 9 to 3 would be amazing day for the kids. You could sleep in, and then you have plenty of time for other things. But it would require going longer, which would be a harder thing in our agriculture community. So 6 hours of school today, 6 class periods. Timeline. They brought in some different data from different people. Some teachers liked it, some didn't. The teachers were kind of split.
I think, and I group that, next time leave out the maybe, because everybody went to maybe, and I don't know how they feel now. Yay.
And that's a good learning
They
thing
did
for them
like
as they're
that.
conducting surveys too.
Yeah, I think leave it out.
Yeah.
Shifts everybody there, I mean, 80% of the people said maybe.
Online attendance, what was, this is loading. I think the internet's getting tired. Saying this meeting's going on.
So the online attendance, in our discussion in the classroom, we were a little surprised at what point you get detention, your absences.
Yeah.
And
It's pretty harsh.
The kids wanted it harsh.
No, they.
It was.
Why that's not loading. Is the internet going down on yours? Oh, here it goes.
our position was, if we miss a school day, we can just go online and
Oh.
get our assignments. So, we said, ever come to class then? Do you have that option? Yeah, sure doesn't, they would, but it did come up that after the 6 absences, then they start getting the detention.
And they weren't sure teachers wanted to spend time putting this up. honestly.
There are some charter schools
Yeah,
that,
again,
that are able to offer some things like this, but again, they're very unique, and you have teachers who are paid a lot more to that, so.
the teachers, well, in 11th grade especially went to maybe.
No, but that's one that you gave them the back.
Yeah, I said, I don't know any more than I did before. Too much of the light blue, see, they're all navy. That was, I think they were questioning. So I don't know,
Try to go to seat time and
how does that work out? Because how did it work out? Kids coming and getting their pension settled, was it the very last day that some of them were still taking care of it, or?
I had just a list like this. It was really big. But we added that they couldn't sign out. I think a few just left, but I've pulled some credit. Try to be very generous because typically kids that don't come to school also fail classes. So I look and say, okay, well, I'll just put a loss of credit instead of an F, which is the same thing. I try because we even still, so we're doing a summer school to help kids who failed. It ends tomorrow, and we've helped 5 of them recover, and the criteria for that is 40% or higher, and then they can get it up to a passing grade. If their teachers will work with them, but we let some detention kids come in. The ones who are towards the very, very end are typically our kids that really have some struggles.
Doesn't detention have to be settled at the end of each semester?
We try really hard, yeah.
But it can't carry over into the next
No.
time.
No,
it's done
no,
right
it's
now.
done. And then I pull credit.
And I do think that that was one thing that Mrs. Scott, like you said, when she says that her list was only, a couple, it's not 2 or 3 pages in the event. I think that
It was a
first year-
page, it got onto, when it gets to the second page, I start getting a little bit worried, but some of it, like some kids might have 15 minutes because of a tardy.
And I think our attendance has
And that's
actually
why.
improved this year.
I sure hope so.
That's what the records are showing us. And we've seen that.
And if we have, online learning, not online learning, but the kids.
Well, we do have online contracts that kids can sign if they do IDLA, and they can go home, like if they have a 7th hour IDLA, as long as they have a C or higher, they can go home.
They're missing, they're sick, and they have to put these out. Can't they tune in to the teacher? Is there a way to do that? Have kids at home?
We don't have, in theory, we.
In
could set
COVID,
up-
they had talked about getting those cameras to be able to project that, but we never did end up
We
getting.
could, but just trying to orchestrate that with our teachers
Too much?
is too much.
There are a few teachers, and kids do typically reach out, and we try, if a parent lets us know, to say, hey, round up their work. A sibling will sometimes come get it, like we really do try to help them get caught up. We also have that before and after school with Mrs. Bell when they've missed, and then go get help, and Mrs. Smith has kind of taken more of the ELA and other parts of that, like not to infringe on what she does, where we offered, so Mrs. Bell did a math credit recovery, we did an ELA one too. And we offered that as a class or in a quarter that kids could come and take to recover their credit. So we're doing some things to try to help those kids that either miss or really struggle or.
And parents know about this too. Parents know that she's in detention.
I hope so. Yeah. Oh, they get.
Yeah.
They don't get notified of detention. However, they know their absences. They know the policies in the handbook. But Mr. Gamer, one of the things he wants to do at the training he's going to for Power School is that kids and parents will be able to see their detention time in Power School now. So
Okay,
we're hopeful.
That's great.
that's a good.
I know. So we're hopeful so we are making progress of what that looks like. So the parents can see like, oh, when I decide to pull them for this much, it does start to kind of compound a little bit.
Okay.
Whether or not detention is a good thing to help with attendance, I don't know, but because it doesn't get our ADA back.
So senior projects took a long time. They were there a long time.
Or at least this presentation took a long time here.
I think that's, we get the consensus. And it's when we left there that The kids just want exactly what the state requires and that's what the survey results was that felt like they had too much added requirements.
No, there is upcoming, though, the state did make a change on the requirements.
I think we should have that.
And actually, we're pretty much already there. Like, so that's the thing is, is
Your
this,
occupation.
the senior class that presented this, were wanting like, hey, let's just go back to those main requirements. And I think part of that also comes because they hear other schools on what they do, and if they are doing, I don't wanna call it the bare minimum like it's a bad thing, but what we required here is exactly what they just changed the law for us to do. I do think you know, the feedback, what feedback have you gotten on senior projects, and what types of
I'll be
things?
very honest. I think you guys know how I feel, but I'll be honest of some of the things that, so after this, I did tell Karina, I said maybe she's very good at streamlining. I'm not. She started to streamline and make it more simple. She's making everything to be very accessible online. And I said, maybe I just need to like bite the bullet, but I will tell you one thing when they were talking about the senior project. I couldn't attend this meeting that they had for our area, so I went to the one. I did it digitally, kind of as a Zoom, and it went through the like Moscow area, Coeur d'Alene area one, and the people who were there presenting it from the state rewriting it, I actually told them what we did, and then I sent them what our students do. And I think some of the things they like, she really liked it, and I told them like the different phases and how we planned it and organized it so kids, the support that they got. And I do feel some of the elements that they created when you say it's a job shadow, for the most part, that's what we do, but it's a mentorship too. Like Aubrey Sharp, who wrote a novel, necessarily wouldn't have been considered a job shadow, but she had a mentor help her get through that project. Raleigh Calder welded, and it wasn't necessarily a job shadow, it was a project, but that's something he could do as a skill in a future job. And I think that's where the state, when they're like, it should be like a job shadow or more career based. I think all of those have elements of connecting to a project. Even when a kid leads a sport camp or something, like coaching could eventually lead to, I mean, most people are gonna do that. It could lead to some kind of a job, but not a sustained full-time job. So I think we do that. The research paper is done in English, and so then really the only thing that's left was the portfolio, the presentation, and I thought it was kind of funny. I had one sitting on my desk that I hadn't returned, and I texted a mom and said, "Hey, I have so and so's senior project. Do they want it back, or do you want me to just see if a teacher wants to use it as a future example?" And she's like, "No, they want it back. They were looking for it and couldn't find it, and they had to turn in one last thing at the very end, and so it sat on my desk for a little bit." To get approved, but I think kids see value once they've gone through it, but before they have and during it, they don't. But I could be way wrong, and I really, after I left that meeting, I really did try to like dial it back a little bit. I just think it's such an amazing academic thing that our seniors show, and we really have provided a lot of supports for them. But if it needs to change more, I'm gonna back off because I'm not in charge of it anymore. And let our English teacher, and if you want to facilitate more change, I know she would
So
work
that's,
with you,
so
so.
that's one thing that, just reiterate what you're saying is, after going through this process, listening, you delegated, senior projects to Mrs. Smith for next year, she's gonna streamline that, and so.
She is, but I would be curious, what do you think you would like to see go now that maybe you've either had someone go through it, you've seen it, your daughter's kind of in the process of doing it? I would love to know what you would want to see go. Like that, I would love to know that. And like I say, I'm gonna pull back because it was something we worked really hard to create, like a student group worked. We had core teachers that stayed, and I was one of the core teachers, and I led it for so long. So I had to kind of separate myself and try to listen. But I still think we've provided so much support to help them get through this amazing thing. But I'm gonna kind of step back and just let them, the English teacher, kind of guide it. And she does like what they do. I think why bigger schools do the bare minimum, it's one of the reasons why she wanted to come here, is she was guiding 150 kids through this, not 50. And It's even broken down more because there's 2 senior English teachers. So we're able to help them get through that. And that's why it's not permanent. But if you go to Thunder, it's probably a project and a paper, and that's it. So, but I would love to know now that you've gone through it, and I'll take your suggestions back, because I was pretty passionate that day. I'm glad my aunt still likes me, but,
I didn't see any cross purpose.
well, I know, but I get a little intense about it, because I do think it's such an amazing academic.
I wasn't trying to
Showcase.
take anything away.
I know, but I needed to listen to, and
Yeah, the kids were passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I thought it, might have put more stress on the kids than some of them like to handle, but
Not, whether it comes from not knowing, there's a lot of different things. Maybe it is because of lack of clarity, but also, I can say this as I tended to procrastinate more, and procrastination causes more stress.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
there's
your daughter went through it. If you were gonna change now that she's done it, what would you think that wasn't necessary now that she's gone through the whole thing? And you can be honest, like, it won't hurt my feelings, I promise.
It added a lot of stress. And maybe it had a lot to do with her personality, but it brought a whole different dynamic into the household. When she came home and she was stressed, and a lot of it had to do with getting papers late. Things weren't laid out like specific deadlines along the way. And so that added some stress into it. I don't think it's a bad thing to do a job shadow at all, as it helped her go in a different direction for school after that. Because if she hadn't done that job shadow, she wouldn't have gotten the information she did and said, well, I always thought I wanted to do this. I planned on this for years, but now I know more about it, so I want to go a different direction. And so I think that was beneficial. When it came time to do the presentations, I know this room here, gym space is large, but you couldn't hear anything. It was really hard to go around and try and talk to the kids because there's just so much going on that, yeah, it felt chaotic.
One thing we used to do is we would put parents and then the teacher advisor in the classrooms over at the high school and present. And I will address the timeline. They're actually with their teacher advisor. So again, Mrs. Smith she's really good at this. When they do their monthly grade checks, seniors will be assigned to their teacher advisor and check in with them monthly when we do our grade checks. So they will say, hey, where you're at, we need to see these papers, so that the teachers over there become a little more involved in the process. And that will start next year. That's why I say, like, every year I feel like we are doing better at helping them be more successful, so it doesn't cause that stress. Like getting the paperwork signed. And she really, like I say, I'm a big picture. So I like being married to someone that's a very fine detail. So I like to get feedback because I can see a big picture, and I think each part has value in the real world. I even think stress in the real world is a good thing, and yeah, it does add a different dynamic.
yeah,
Really?
unhelpful.
a little, I've heard
Sometimes it's
research
motivating.
say that stress, a little bit of stress can help you perform, but too much stress can be debilitating. Like,
Yeah. Anyway, but hopefully we're streamlining and maybe getting rid of some of the things that were frustrating. And yeah, deadlines can be hard sometimes for some kids. Some kids, it gets done easily, but again, we provide a lot of supports, I hope, to help them. But I think we're hearing it and trying to address it and maybe minimize some of it.
Last one is the mastery versus seat time, and I don't know if those students weren't there or if they just ran out of time.
They ran out of time. They had to present it on another day.
In reading their presentation, it just sounds like the frustration is maybe with the state of Idaho on the amount of hours required. by the state emotional.
I don't know why anybody didn't go and fight for funding for enrollment.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a good project. It was a good school. Project.
Well, she said they got scared when you guys came in, so I think that was good too.
The thing that I
They are terrifying.
was that then school was out that same week, and we didn't get any feedback on how we felt about it or what we did.
And maybe I could tell her, I
Well,
think she
I
put the
did.
stats thing at the end.
I did send an email to her that she shared with the staff, with the students,
Yeah,
that you guys were impressed and that you were gonna discuss it in this board meeting and
But they will probably never, the seniors, there were a lot of seniors, and they'll probably never know how many.
Actually, quite a few of them were juniors who will
were
be
they?
seniors.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear some of the boys got to go in the contract. meeting.
Those
I-
two,
I-
those two in particular were juniors who will be seniors, so
Hopefully they'll have their dividers and they can
at
use the
least.
restroom.
Yeah. Anyway,
Thank you, Mrs. Scott.
travel safe.
my pleasure. And I'll just update the Google Doc.
That would be great.
Will it update it in what you've shared or?
What I can do is in our next board meeting is
Yeah.
I'll share the
Cause
updated
these two
version
are
with
already
them.
on it and I could just add you to it if you want, but,
Probably
I'll
the
just
best
update.
way is for me to just share it with you.
okay, all right.
Very careful.
Yeah, just try.
Have a nap. We need a special for working.
We might, but we're gonna wait. We do have some, job openings that we would like to probably get approved before. So once those are finished, and there's recommendations, we have not set up interviews for the two openings as of yet. But when they do get set up, we possibly would like to hold one before the next regular. That means text out, go that route. And that could possibly also be a phone one.
Our next regular meeting is July.
After the fourth.
It's July 9th at 10 a.m.
Any other event?
In summertime, the other events, I guess you'd say, is if you want to go on the NFHS, you can watch the progress of her football field. I've been putting on a 10-hour nonstop view of the field. They had them this morning, they had half the safety pad down. I don't know if this weather's been. Everything looked good when they pulled it up. There was one section that had from that earthquake a couple years ago, we had a little soft spot out there. In 2020, there was a small earthquake, and then we had a little divot out there. They were able to go in, repack it down. Everything looked good. So it's on. Things are a little bit ahead of schedule, actually. So.
Before we open for a motion to adjourn,
And Jerry, something.
there's a second. Those in favor?